Well, in this environment here, before we start the meeting, it is interesting. I think we've become much more open of trying to discuss things, and the Facebook post that I put out about the community chats, and even make a statement that says, right within the post, that says, we really don't have the resource or the time to comment back to people on Facebook, nor do I think that's the place that we should engage in the conversation. So we will not do that. The very first post that you get is that question about, what are we going to do about the deer in the community? And we're not going to respond to things. So by bringing it up here, Roger, that's a little different. Then okay, then we need to have some discussion. But that's why we're going to have a community chat where we can come and sit down and talk, as opposed to, we're not going to get into that banner back and forth. It's not the way that we want to have those discussions.
We need to limit your screen time
from there. That's it. Yeah, well, I mean, we try to monitor so that there's nothing that we need to get off of there. But we've been pretty good that way. We haven't had those kinds of issues. But it's just that one just kind of threw me when I just made a statement that we're not going to respond in there, and then there's the question, what are you going to do about this? And we're just not going to respond in that manner, because nobody wins in that one.
No, you can't fight that.
So if they have that question, they can come tomorrow night and get their really good hot dog, and we'll do that thing.
Aged hot dog.
That was good. He said really good, Nick. Come on.
Can you get venison hot dogs?
A lot of possibilities. There's no doubt.
There you go.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
6:01. Are we ready?
6:01. I don't know. Lynn, are we ready?
Keep us on.
Okay, we've got the camera, so it's after 6 o'clock. We'll call it in order. If you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you very much. You taking a roll? Okay, we'll entertain a motion for the approval of the June 25th, 2019 regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
Support. Motion and support. Are there any comments, questions, corrections? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion is carried. First up, we have public hearing to consider the final special assessment district roll number 2 for 2017 for the construction of the sanitary sewer leads on Ely Street.
Okay.
So we'll open the public hearing. Looks like Dave's volunteering.
Well, I at least get the spiel anyway and start that. So it was Ely Street?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, this is the final SAD closeout for the sanitary sewer leads and laterals that were done as a part of last year's capital improvements program. The first one is for Ely Street. The next one that we'll have coming up is for Euclid. But as the slide says right now, this one's for Ely Street. As been prior practices, the city sets up an SAD for particular projects. In this instance, is for our street projects for the replacement of sanitary sewer laterals. This is a program that's beneficial for a number of reasons. Number one is it helps our street surface to last significantly longer because we don't have cuts within the first 10 to 20 years after the road project is done with sanitary sewer laterals that are replaced. Number two, it helps us with inflow and infiltration into the city's sanitary sewer lines. But those two things helps us to keep the clear water out. It also makes our roads last longer, and a number of our sewers are very old, so this also helps to replace the sanitary sewers. The City Commission a number of years ago decided that that's a priority to replace aging infrastructure, which has been nothing but a huge beneficial help to us as far as to improve our infrastructure. Number two is to make our infrastructure last longer, and it's a recognized, highly encouraged practice under asset management. So we're pretty unique in that we're able to do this, and we couldn't do it without the Commission's approval and the residents as well for their participation. As been prior practice, the city pays for half of any sewer laterals that are replaced. Half of the cost of the property owner pays the other half for the sanitary sewer lateral, which makes it more palatable to each entity. And if the existing sanitary sewer was anything other than plastic, we will replace it and the property owner will pay half. If it was existing plastic, there's no charge to the property owner. We just replace what's there and connect it to the. This is the portion that we replaced on Ely Street. It's between around South State Street to Moyer and the adjacent boundaries out of that. What we do is assess any particular property initially that may connect to this sanitary sewer, with the idea being if there's any laterals that do not connect into the sewer, we can always remove them as a part of the final follow-up. And you'll see one house in particular that was. We can always remove, but we can't add once this one's set. This is the final cost for the sanitary sewer replacements that we did on Ely Street. You can see the actual footage of the pipe that was replaced, and at 204 Ely, there was no sanitary sewer to replace. They already had plastic on there, so we didn't assess that property owner. You'll notice that the footages, there's a couple feet variation. That is just because of whatever material pipe they had. We go to the next joint that we find when we excavate it, or until we find a material that's suitable to connect to if it's in poor condition, but we try to keep it as small and low as we can. But with the idea of getting it out of the right-of-way, so if there is any kind of replacement that's needed in the future, they don't have to excavate into the street surface, which makes it cheaper for them and also helps our street surface to last longer. I'll open up to any questions if anybody is along Ely Street.
How long are we giving them to pay and what's the interest rate? 5 years, that time's up one, I think it's
No,
what?
it's the treasury bond rate.
Oh,
And the treasury bond rate now is 3.969, and it's and we charge 1% over that. So the rate would be 4.969. And you as the commission can determine the number of years. 5 is generally the rule, but you can make it longer or shorter if you want to.
Okay, any more questions? Okay,
Motion to close the meeting.
is there anybody from the public who wants to speak? This is from the public, right? So, no questions from the public? Well, motion to close the hearing?
Support.
Motion and support, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, the hearing is closed. Next up, we'll adopt a resolution to ratify the special assessment district for roll number 2 for 2017, establishing a payment schedule and setting the interest rate. Your pleasure?
Move to adopt the resolution with the treasury bond rate that Sheila described in the 5 years.
5 years, is that, okay. That's our
Unless someone
standard, that's our
has
standard, I think,
something else.
unless somebody requests otherwise, so.
Support.
Okay, we have motion support, is there any comments or questions?
That's me.
Everybody checks their phone real quick, okay. Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion is carried. Hearing number 2 is a public hearing to review the special assessment district number 3 for 2017 for the construction of sanitary sewer leads on Euclid Avenue. So we'll open that hearing. And Dave, you're
Okay.
taking this.
Similar to exactly what I mentioned on Ely Street, this is for Euclid. Think of it as kind of a twin project, but the same scenario applies. We replaced the sanitary sewer main on Euclid Avenue, which is a very good step towards trying to help our assets last a lot longer than they are. Probably, I'm going to guess that sewer is well over 80 years old. But also like to thank the commission again for paying for half of the sanitary sewer laterals as well as all of the residents, because as I mentioned before, it helps everything to last longer, makes it cheaper, makes our roads last longer. This is the district that we did on Euclid, just over here to the east. We went from the manhole at the center of Superior Street south to the dead end of Euclid Avenue, and same thing, we assessed anybody initially that had any potential to connect to that sanitary sewer lateral, and if anybody had anything other than plastic, we replaced it and documented how many lineal feet was replaced and try to keep it as small as we can. But there's a few of them here that will vary, and I'll explain that as well when we get to that portion. And you can see some footages on this one. There's a few variations on this with the lineal foot. There was a cul-de-sac that was placed at the south end, so that helped to extend the laterals a little bit. But the cul-de-sac really didn't affect it too much because some of the sanitaries down in that south portion were in pretty tough shape, so we had to go back to the next joint that wasn't broken or cracked to connect the new plastic lines to it. One particular address had 2 laterals, so that's why there's an extra footage for that one. There was one issue one of the residents brought up last week, and I have made that amendment. They had 2 sanitary sewer laterals, but going back further in the documentation and talking to the field engineer that was out there, that one was plastic, so we subtracted that amount, so now they are paying a lesser amount. That change is reflected onto this current slide. Same thing here, the city pays for half, the residents pay for the other half of what was replaced.
Any comments or questions? Anything from the public? Okay, here are no comments. Will entertain a motion to close the hearing?
So moved. Support.
Motion support, last chance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The hearing is closed. So we will adopt a resolution ratifying the special assessment district roll number 3 for 2017, establishing a payment schedule and setting the interest rate. Your pleasure.
I move 5 years at the prevailing interest rate.
Okay. We have motion support. Any additional comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. Number 3, public hearing to review the special assessment districts number 1 for 2018 for the construction of sidewalks on Lincoln Avenue. We'll open that hearing.
This one is a little bit different in that it's not sanitary sewer laterals. This is for the construction of a brand new sidewalk on Lincoln Avenue. Show the next slide in the distance that we went. Red line on the east represents the new sidewalk that was installed from Marshall Street south to approximately near the city limits, just north of Van Buren. With this project, the city once again pays for half of the cost, and the adjoining property owner pays for the other half. And what we made a change back a number of years ago to help to make it more palatable to residents, in that everybody that has any use for the sidewalk, it doesn't matter if it's on their side of the street or not, each adjoining property owner that has sidewalk availability on this helps to share into the cost, helps to bring the cost down when you split it amongst more property owners. This was decided on, actually, one question came up is there was a question brought up to whether or not this was discussed in the past. This SAD estimate was set up in the fall, almost winter of 2016, actually Tuesday, December 13th, 2016. There was a letter sent out to the residents inviting them into the initial SAD hearing to discuss this project, talk about estimated costs at that meeting. The reason why this was done back in 2016, so long ago, is if any of the commissioners that are still, that aren't new, but the new ones that we're not on may not know this. Back in 2016 in the fall, we set it up that much in advance because this was a project that was with MDOT funding and federal funding. So what we had to do was set this up ahead of time. Before the drawing process had started, we wanted to know what the commission's thoughts were if we wanted to put in a sidewalk on here prior to any construction drawings being developed, so that we would save money and time, because if you put that sidewalk in, it affects the longitudinal slope of the street. So then once that was approved at that hearing, then we go on to construction. Last year it was actually constructed. This project was completed a little after Labor Day, somewhere in that time frame of last year, and now here we are with doing the final SAD closeout hearing on it. The project cost actually pleasantly came down from what the original estimates were. We try to estimate accurately. Sometimes we come in less, which is always a good thing. It makes it more palatable to people. But the costs actually are lower than what we had estimated before we sent out for the initial SAD back in 2016. These are some photos. There were some photos before we set this up. This is now post-sidewalk. And I did not plan that. There's somebody walking on it. It was just kind of luck of the draw when I did it. I would like to say it was staged, but it actually wasn't. So these are some kind of after pictures if you're not familiar with it, of that area and how much different that does look now for the sidewalk and the curb on Lincoln Avenue. And these are the final costs, and we'll go down here to take a look at it. We estimated a total cost of almost $83,500, and each prospective homeowner or property owner, with their initial costs, I won't go through each individual one, but this was the estimate. and the actual came in at almost 65,000, so nearly $20,000 under what we had estimated, which was a pleasant surprise. Hopefully it's a little more palatable that it was cheaper in the final outcome. But as you can see, there's a number of property owners. The city is one of them, the Gratiot County Fair, and then the residents on there. And once again, this is a tribute to the city paying for half and the residents paying for half. It also helps to create more walkable neighborhoods, and without that, helps to show improvement and give other means of transportation for city streets. So with that, if there's any other questions that the commission may have, or residents. Oh, I'm sorry, it's your meeting.
Go ahead,
It's
sir.
auction.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hi, I'm Christopher Taylor. I live at 708 South Lincoln Avenue, right across the street from this sidewalk. This sidewalk has no benefit to us at all whatsoever. It's not maintained. From gate number 2 of the fair to gate number 1, nobody uses that sidewalk. There's no, I watched it, I said watch it. Nobody uses that sidewalk at all. From gate number 2 down to Marshall Street, a great benefit for those. There's more people down there. They walk that back and forth. They can go right in gate 2. When the fair is on, gate 1 is closed all the time, so there's no need. There's no need for that sidewalk there for whatsoever. None. I talked to the contractor that was doing it, and I asked him, I said, why is this sidewalk being put in here? Because they can, it's under a federal grant, it's not going to affect you. This was a contractor. Now, what he had the blueprints and all that for me. I have no idea what he knew, but this is a quote that he said to us. Therefore, I speak on behalf of Sarah Deering, who I have a note from, that is also on there, and George Smith, who I think you know George. He's in his 60s, and he said he don't get out past 6 o'clock. So I speak on their behalf, too. So we are protesting this, and we'd like to see our names taken off. And I will turn it over to my next neighbor, Carla, and you can speak on your behalf.
I don't use the sidewalk. I can't believe we're being charged for it. You don't even plow it in the wintertime. Is that up to us to plow it? It's across the road.
I can answer a few of those questions. The first one is there was no grant for the sidewalks. There was grant money for the street project itself. That's for the road surface, not for the sidewalk. So the contractor misrepresented or misspoke. I mean, I couldn't speak to that, but that was not a part of the equation. And the adjacent property owners are responsible for the maintenance of the sidewalks. For snow plowing, that side would probably be the fairgrounds because it's on their side, unless somebody else chooses to take that on themselves. But that's standard policy throughout the entire city.
But I want to know who benefits from the sidewalk. Who will benefit from the sidewalk from gate 2 all the way to city limits? You got it right on your paper, benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Who's benefiting from that?
I couldn't speak for any particular names, but any
Nobody.
residents in general could.
Nobody
The
benefits from
city.
it. Nobody at all. Nobody
It's a
uses
decision
it.
as far as bettering the city as a whole. I mean, we have to think of the city and our policies and how we.
I understand that, but when nobody benefits from it, when it's not maintained, who maintains it from the rest of the way down? Nobody has. Nobody at all.
Just
And
like
when
with
that
all
case-
of our, just like with all of our sidewalks, it's the property owner that owns the property right in front of it, so.
I don't own in
Why
front of it
wouldn't it be
though.
the fairgrounds?
It is the fairgrounds in
It
this
is the
case.
fairgrounds.
It's the fairgrounds that'll
But
have
I
to
don't
take
own
care
it.
of
Why
it.
would we have to pay for it then? I don't-
Because we did that as a policy for a whole, and I'm speaking for myself, I mean, but we did that as a policy as a whole so that because sidewalks, even if it's not in your yard, and whether you personally feel that it benefits you, we have decided that sidewalks do, I mean, there are studies that show sidewalks make a community more livable,
Well,
more
they didn't do a
walkable,
study
more
on this 'cause
enticing.
it's wrong.
I understand,
It's
and I
wrong. The whole
appreciate,
thing is totally
I
wrong.
appreciate that you feel the way you do. I understand that, and I hear what you're saying. But we need to make decisions for the city as a whole, and we decided to do that splitting so that that 50% is shared between the residents in that community, because you could, if you so chose, walk across the street and walk on that sidewalk, and it makes
That's
it less
another issue.
expensive.
Walk across the street. Walk across the street. Try to get across that street when you got people coming in from Elger doing 60 miles an hour hitting that. I can't even gauge how fast they're going. I have to wait when they're clear down the other street or way down there because they're coming so fast. I don't know if they're slowing down. So to walk across that street to get to that sidewalk ain't gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen.
But someone, you just said it yourself, someone will use it because someone's coming at 60 miles an hour and they're not walking on the street.
No, there's no residences there. There's no residences from gate 2 down, so nobody uses it. Nobody uses that sidewalk at all. There are no residentials there. There's no reason for
We
somebody
do
to
have a
walk.
residential community just down the road there, Gemstone, which we need to extend this sidewalk now.
Eventually, I guess I can't speak for the commission, but eventually at some point, the goal would be to extend it down to Gemstone to incorporate that
Now
into the
we're gonna
city limits.
extend it. Yeah, that's a good one.
But
That's a good one.
it does,
That's good.
eventually all sidewalks will.
Nobody's gonna use it even clear out there.
But
Didn't we
someone
have a
might at
hearing?
some
Was
point.
that?
Yes, we did
Didn't
in
we have a hearing?
Dave just gave December 2016.
And I never
We had
received a
hearing.
letter. And I have a copy of the letter from my neighbor Sarah, who I don't know who she knows on here.
Me.
Made her a copy of it. Because Sarah never even got a copy of it.
Oh, yeah.
I never received
She
a copy.
had gotten a copy, and
No.
and we've had this conversation because she had told Nick and I one day, and I said this to Sarah,
both said it.
how wonderful sidewalks were until she got her letter that said it was coming in her neighborhood and she'd have to pay for it. I understand that it's difficult to pay for. I do understand. I live here and have to follow the same rules and regulations that you do. That's why we have to live in the city to be commissioners. I don't get bussed in from some other community and just randomly make up rules
Well,
for
I'd just like
someone
to know
else.
from who on here decided that this was a benefit though.
We
It's
decided-
been a long
For who though?
It's been a long
city.
standing
Benefits the
practice.
city.
For decades.
The
And
city.
the residents of the city. Someone may move
you
in there
would've
someday
came-
that has,
Larry, there's no
Children.
residents that use it.
If you
I
would
swear
have
to you,
came
in
and
the last
talked to
6
us at
months.
the hearing,
I
then
didn't
it
know
would have
about
made
it.
sense.
I'd have been here, but I didn't know about it. I did not receive this letter. I swear to you, I did not receive that letter.
We did send out, I have a list of all the preliminary addresses that was sent out to. Is your name Chris Taylor?
That's me.
Okay, your name does show up on here. Daring shows up on here. I could speak for your name, ma'am, but I don't know that. But I have the preliminary lists, and it has the addresses and the names on there. And I have a letter that was sent out, and it was also published in the newspaper for the initial hearing that was set up in 2016.
So this is kind of an afterthought now. We've already got the sidewalk in. We may have done something.
So I'm here to
before.
protest our names. I don't want our house names taken off.
So can I ask questions? I am new, I'm a new commissioner, so I'm not clear. The sidewalk that was put in, it's across the street from these
Yes.
houses?
Yes.
But it's not in their.
It's been a long-standing practice, when they put a sidewalk in, if we're only doing one side of the street, then the cost, the residents half, so half of it's paid by the city, the other half is split between both property owners on both sides of the street.
Who owns the other side of the street? What's over there?
The fairground.
The fairgrounds, in this case, I have for a large portion of it.
There's a few different ones. The fairgrounds have the majority of it, but there's also.
The section he's talking about is the fairgrounds.
Yes, the fairgrounds.
and we as the city pay
Why
our
aren't the
share, for the other.
They are paying for it.
Forget the fairgrounds for myself, just so I understand. So Roxanne lives across the street from
Yes,
me.
because we don't always know
And-
if the side, which
And
side
she
we're gonna
doesn't
put
have
the
a sidewalk,
sidewalk
and you
in.
put one in over there. I
Correct.
pay for that sidewalk?
You pay
for a quarter.
your half of the.
Okay, if you double and put on each side, look at how prohibitive the cost is gonna be.
I
So
get,
that's
I
part
get
of
if it's
that's
on my
what-
side, I'm just trying to understand so that.
So
I-
like on
Yeah,
Loose
it's the
Road,
neighborhood.
the sidewalk's on one side of the street. It's on the side of the street, near the golf course. So the people on the other side of the street would pay half of the half. The city pays half, and so the property owner on the other side pays a quarter, the property owner adjacent to the sidewalk pays a quarter.
So then do
The
you have
property
to go
owner
over and
adjacent to the
shovel
sidewalk
No.
has the maintenance responsibility.
Maintenance responsibilities on the side.
Maintenance is on the side of the people that own the property adjacent.
But I think, and I don't know, it wasn't here for the reason originally, but I think what they were saying is, this is a neighborhood benefit as opposed to my house
I
and you don't
understand that, I
benefit.
understand.
And without talking about, I don't know who's using what over there, but I do know on a lot of those streets,
Sure.
I got grandkids, we cross the street, we use the sidewalk, we go where, that makes sense in that context.
Yeah. And there, it's, study after study shows there are increased property values when you have sidewalks available
On your side?
on either side of the
No,
street.
Greg, that's wrong. On your side of the street, yes, it is. It's an asset. It's a huge
It
asset.
is a huge asset to the entire
But not on
community
the other
to
side of
have
the street.
sidewalks.
I'm gonna send my autism grandson, say, well, go across the street, get on the other side. No, that's not gonna happen.
I have an autistic grandson too, and we do cross, you're right, I'm not by himself, But he holds my hand across that street, we walk on that sidewalk, because I'm not gonna walk along the street on the other side.
Exactly.
So we do utilize the sidewalk, it's just on the other side. I got one too, and I got him, he's right next to me, but we're on that sidewalk. And thank God for that sidewalk, because I wouldn't want him and me in the street, that kid.
But where this is at, what I'm saying, where this is at, from gate 2 to gate 1, there's nothing, there's no
And
reason.
our next
If I
phase is
could
to
go
connect
the
it on
park,
to
I'm gonna get in
Gemstone,
the
where there's
car
gonna be a
right
lot
down
of kids
there.
living out there that need to ride their bikes into town and need to walk
Oh my
into
God,
town.
that
for-
place has
No.
been there for how many years? There's what, 5 houses?
There's 4 of us on the one side.
Yeah, and we're just trying to plan for the future here, so,
Planning.
you know,
So you're saying somebody's gonna get the property and live
down in Gemstone, yes, there are people living down in
somewhere
Gemstone.
down?
And there will be more building going
How
on
long
down in
has
Gemstone.
Gemstone been there?
Was a new house
I
going in
don't
this
know, it's been
year?
a number of
How
years.
many houses have been put in there in the last 10, 15 years?
Well, we're gonna have a sidewalk there, we're trying to encourage people to build there. We have to plan for the future, we're trying to make things better for everybody.
Well, then how do I appeal this to the state then? Because I'm taking it to the
I
state.
don't know the procedure for that.
for that.
I don't know.
I've done it before, so I guess I'll have to do it
You
again.
probably know the procedures better than we do.
Yes, I will.
So-
I just seen if you knew.
I do not. I've never done it. Honest to God, I have a stranded sidewalk in front of my house. When I built my house, I want a sidewalk so bad, I put it in myself.
Yep, yep.
And I wish to heavens the whole neighborhood had it. I really miss the sidewalks we had in my old neighborhood. I grew up in a sidewalk with neighborhood. They are
They're great.
valuable.
I remember having them as a kid. They're great to have.
They are absolutely
When
great.
but they're on opposite on a side that you're never going to use. You shouldn't get charged for
And
it.
I'll tell you, another way to look at this, though, if you look at the overall road, I mean, you got not only sidewalks, you got a brand new road, you got
That's great.
brand new sewers under there, you got a new water main, I believe, and you got curbs and gutters that, honest to God, I was against putting in curbs, but it looks fantastic, I'll give you that, Dave. I mean, I was against it, it's a lot of money, the city put a lot of money into curbs and gutters. For the price of your sidewalk, you're getting one bargain.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I like paying for something that I use. I don't mind paying for something that I use. I use
Well,
that.
think of it as a project then, and I guarantee you, you're gonna use the project, you're using the road, it's
Greg, you're not going to convince me.
probably not, but.
It's just not right. It's
Planning
not
is
right.
hard for, it is, and you're right, you say Gemstone, how many? It's that chicken and egg. If you build it, will it make it more attractive? Will it give more people wanting access to it? And when they made the decision to do that, I mean, you look at it and say, what is going to, eventually it's going to have to be connected, otherwise it's the sidewalk, it's nowhere at the end there. And so it needs to be connected where there are possible residences to see if it can come in. I get what you're saying, but I also understand the whole concept.
Well, how many of you up there have a sidewalk on the other side of your street that you pay for?
Well, when I had young children and would walk them around the neighborhood,
didn't
if
ask
there
that.
wasn't.
I didn't ask that
know what you're
question.
asking, but as a whole,
but-
sidewalks are
What was your
better,
question?
because I live right in town and there's sidewalks on both sides of the street. If you
That's
would
the
like a
key.
sidewalk put in on your side of the street, you can certainly petition us to think about that. I mean, but that's not really the point.
Silly.
The reason it was shared between a community and a neighborhood is because we're looking at the city as a whole, and I'm sorry it's not on your side
I
of
don't
the
see where
road.
you were looking at a benefit though from it.
Okay,
Well,
let's
we're not
remember a
gonna-
couple
we're not
things.
gonna change our minds.
What's the lifespan of a sidewalk versus our own lifespan? The house may change. Who lives in your house may change. They may benefit. Longer term, well, you choose not to believe that. You choose not to understand it. But that, in fact, is the case. That these things will endure, the neighborhoods will endure beyond us. What do? We set it up. And you're right. Gemstone may not take off right now. It may take off in 5 years. Other places may take off. You know what? I never used the sidewalk on Euclid. But part of my money, my tax dollars, is going to pay the city's half of that. Is that fair?
That's a benefit for you. This is not a benefit for me.
How is it a benefit for me? I've never walked on Euclid
Because
sidewalks.
it's there for you.
And there's
This is
this,
on the other
okay,
side
but
of the
how does
street.
that argument
It's not in
not?
front of my street.
I don't live on Euclid.
It's Lincoln.
It's, I know,
No, it's
I'm
like-
telling,
we're just talking about Euclid.
We just passed Euclid, 50% of Euclid's being paid by the city. That's my tax dollars. I don't walk on Euclid,
Okay, that's your privilege.
right? And again, why is that not your privilege not
Because
to use
it's
the
not on my
sidewalk?
side of the street.
I don't live on Euclid, you're not
Doesn't
here.
live anywhere near
I don't live
there.
anywhere near there.
I don't
That's
walk on it
fine.
either.
And the city, and Rogers, and everybody's tax dollars helps to pay for that, to
You're
offset
missing my
the
point.
cost.
If you say I'm missing your point, that's fine, I understand that. but you're missing my point, you're missing her point, you're
Which
missing
is, you're
Sarah's
saying you
point.
don't use it.
We
That is your
understand.
point. I understand your point.
No, you're not.
No, I think we do understand your point. It's just a process that we've had to look at, take a big picture, and we have to set a policy, and we set these procedures that we've agreed to go by, and we treat, to be fair to everybody, we do the same thing across the city. We've decided ultimately, we'd love sidewalks on both sides of the streets. As Audra mentioned, it'd be very expensive to do that. So to save costs, we only do one side of the street if there isn't one in place.
I see.
So we could have chosen to do sidewalks on both sides.
I tell you guys are good. You listen very carefully to each other, you're good. You're good.
Well, we have spent a lot of time
You're
discussing
right,
these
you're right
things
there.
and making
You're right
decisions
there.
before we
It will
come
be
to this
appealed
point,
to the
so.
state, I guarantee it.
That is
Because
certainly
it's not right. It's just not right.
That is your privilege, and I wish you the best of luck with it.
Thank you, Greg, I appreciate
Yep.
that.
Like I say, if you've been here during the first hearing, when we could
I
have
didn't
done
know, Larry.
something.
I swear to you, Larry, I swear to you. I did not know it. I did not get a letter, I did not see the letter. I would have
I
kept
don't know
this.
how.
We do put them in the mail. It's certified as, we've got certified statements that they were put in the mail. Whether it got to your house, we have no way to prove that.
Exactly, which has been, 2 years ago,
Yeah.
3 years ago now. So,
So,
no big deal. No big deal.
with that, does anybody have any new information or comments they'd like to make? If not, we'll close the hearing.
Move to close the hearing.
Support.
We have motion and support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The hearing is closed. Okay, thank you. Next up is to adopt a resolution ratifying Special Assessment District Rule Number 1 for 2018, establishing a payment schedule and setting the interest rate.
Move to adopt the resolution.
We have motion and support. Are there any comments or questions?
What's the interest rate?
Interest rate was, what did you say?
Prevail?
The prevailing bond?
Treasury bond rate,
Treasury bond rate.
plus one,
And the length of time?
5 years.
And I believe you said 5 years, is that what we heard?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Moving down to the consent agenda, commissioners may approve the following items by one resolution, or a commissioner may remove any item within the section for individual discussion and vote. We have 2 items. First up is consideration of a request for payment in the amount of $12,240 to IT Right for annual license for Microsoft Office 365. And then second is consideration of a request for payment in the amount of $28,000 to IT Right again for the annual service contract fee for 72 desktop and 4 servers. I assume they're desktop computers and 4
Yes.
servers.
Just the desktop.
Just the desktop, no server. Thank you for the clarification.
Draw a keyboard on there.
What is your pleasure on the 2 items?
Move approval.
Support.
And motion support. Anybody care to comment or question? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Now we'll move to request for purchase. First up, we have consideration of a request for purchase in the amount of $120,718.78 to Axon Enterprises Incorporated for a 5-year contract for the purchase of tasers and body cameras for the Alma Police Department, with the first payment of $20,590.78 submitted with the approval of the contract.
Move approval.
Support.
I have a motion and support. Are there any comments or questions? And we talked about this earlier. I just want to make a comment that I thought was interesting when I was reading a little bit about this company, that it was described as a software company that sells tasers. I looked at it and saw the final amount and thought, boy, that's a lot of money for tasers, but it really seems to be all about the software and the capabilities of evidence handling that is apparently very impressive. I don't know enough about it to be an expert, but it sounded really cool, so glad to have it. With that, I think we had a motion support. Is that correct? Okay, so any other comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. Item 2, consideration of a request for purchase in the amount of $73,008 to Signature Ford to purchase 2 2020 Ford Explorer police utility vehicles for the Alma Police Department.
Move approval.
Support.
And motion support. Are there any comments or questions?
When's the next round of replacing vehicles going to come up? How often are we going to do this?
Well, generally, this year we'll get 2, and the following year we'll get 1, and we'll just a rotation like that. However, 2 years ago I chose not to buy any, so last year we got 1, and then we'll get 2 this year, and we're back on rotation again, but we skipped a year, so
Okay.
they're very, very well due.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. Resolutions. First up, we want to consider adopting a resolution allowing a qualified property owner to file a written request with the July or December Board of Review to claim a principal residence exemption. Can I add some color to that, Matt? Is this, or Kathy?
Yeah,
To allow
so
this?
July and December board reviews, those are for clerical errors and mutual mistakes of fact. So we've always taken principal residence exemptions to the July and December board review, but the state is requesting a resolution. It goes along with the state audit when they're checking to make sure we have all of our written procedures and processes. So for example, if somebody files a principal residence exemption and it wasn't entered into the computer for whatever reason, that's a clerical error. So they have to fill out an affidavit to protest to the July or December board review, and you can go back current year and 3 years prior. So like right now, I have some that I'm taking next week, so I can put it on for 2019, which will be the current year, and I can go back 3 years. And that's the 18 mills, the school millage. So they would receive a refund for the overpayment of the school millage. But the city has to pass a resolution to authorize.
But yeah, we've always done this, right?
Yes.
It's been a general practice,
Yeah.
yes, we have just now.
The state's requiring the resolution at this point.
Yes, yep, and we'll be receiving our audit, and there's lots of procedures and resolutions that we've been passing the last few years, we're prepared.
Do we have to redo this every year, or is this gonna be just a policy going forward?
The resolution will be a
Until
one-time.
the state changes the law again?
Yes.
Is that right?
Well, they make us do it again.
We know that's gonna happen, so, all right. So just a curiosity, you said, if a clerical error was made, if they filed a document with us, and if we discover it, would we automatically make it right with the taxpayer, or would we require them to file a document?
So whether it was the assessor or the taxpayer, the statute is the same, current and 3 years prior. So let's say, for example, somebody had a land contract, and they weren't aware of the PRE exemption, the principal residence exemption, and they just didn't know that they could file. They could fill out the affidavit, and we could go back.
But the burden's on the property owner to file.
Ultimately, it is the taxpayer's
Okay,
responsibility.
taxpayer burden, okay.
But with the July and December board review, we can go ahead if they request it, if they petition
But
it.
ultimately, they trigger,
Don't do it.
the city doesn't seek out those mistakes. If someone says, you made a mistake, it's that July or December, but they have to tell us, that's the basic thing.
Sometimes I will discover that they're not receiving one, and so I send a letter explaining that they are entitled to a principal residence exemption. And in that case, I can bring it to their attention.
But they still
have to bring it to you, and, okay.
Yes.
We may inform them, but they trigger the process.
Yes,
The taxpayer.
they have to request
So the burden is
it.
going to remain on the taxpayer.
Yes.
No matter how they're informed, that's still a list on.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, ultimately, it is the taxpayer's responsibility. They do receive a tax bill every year, so let's say they haven't received a PRE for the last 10 years. Ultimately, it is their responsibility to look at their tax bill and to know that they have not been receiving that. So that's why the state statute is current and 3 years prior. We couldn't go back.
As long as your practice is to notify them that they may be entitled to this, I guess we're satisfied with that. That's right.
Yes, we send out letters all the time. Yep.
Yeah, I don't want it to be a gotcha. I don't want us to take the approach that you can take advantage of somebody, fine you because you didn't catch it.
We're not necessarily passive, but they have to.
But they still have to file.
Even adjacent property, a lot of people aren't aware that they are entitled to a principal residence exemption if they own vacant adjacent property. So we send letters notifying taxpayers of that as well.
Is there a limit on the acreage or anything you can do with that?
Nope, it just has to be adjacent, and it can be across the street. That doesn't break the...
Adjacency?
Yep.
That's odd. But there's no limit to that.
As long as it's
Okay.
touching.
Far be it for me to question the state, but...
Because it's one parcel, so no matter if it was 10
Yeah.
acres or 1 acre, it'd be one parcel, and it would be adjacent to their principal residence, their dwelling.
Okay, interesting. All right, any more questions for Kathy on this? I think we've heard enough then. So do we have a motion? We do not.
Motion.
Okay, well, support. We do have a motion of support. Any additional comments or questions? None, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Number 2 is consideration of a resolution recognizing Celebrate Ministries Incorporated of Alma, Michigan as a nonprofit organization for operating in the community for the purpose of obtaining a charitable gaming license for the purpose of holding a raffle. Your pleasure. I'm going to give Mr. LaFleur, Mr. and Mrs. LaFleur, excuse me, a gaming license. There.
Support.
Have motion support. Any comments or questions?
Is this something we usually do?
It's
We have to-
required.
It's required by
If
state.
It's required
someone
by state
wants
for
to
them
get
to-
this charitable gaming license, the city has to approve that they're a nonprofit. That's why in your package.
Probably many of these things occur without anybody knowing about it.
Right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, this is the right way to do it. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Any more comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion is carried. Next up is consideration of a resolution adopting a resolution to establish responsible pet ownership in the city of Alma. Your pleasure?
Support.
Motion and support. Matt, do you want to?
It's
What do you wanna
been a
cover?
topic for a while for us, and I think we've looked at different ordinances that have been brought to us, we've looked at different things. And I think that we keep falling back to the solution being, people need to be responsible for their pet. If that pet, or it's not identified as a pet, ends up on someone else's property, that person has property rights that also apply in the law. And so the simplest way to look at the entire picture here is to start with something that just says, we believe you need to be responsible for your pet. It's a pet ordinance, but let's be honest, we know we're talking about cats. We've been talking a lot about that, getting them identified and doing that. The resolution is just us making a stand that says, there's a portion for each party here. For each, you need to be responsible as the owner to make sure you've identified your animal. If the animal ends up somewhere on someone else's private property who also has rights to that property, there are certain laws and things that kick in that allow them to take action.
Take their action.
So
So this is step 1. We're not done working with the county, correct? We're still going to work with the county to try and...
the county has established their rates and the things that they're doing. I think, one of the things that we've talked about that maybe kicks around is, says, okay, do we want to get involved at the point of saying, if that's the cost of doing this, should the city step in with the county and say, we would help support some of that to make sure that the animals are getting where they need to be? And I think that would be part of the future discussion here, yes.
Yeah, I think that's a very appropriate discussion to have in the future, so...
And for a minimal amount, we can probably become very helpful
Yeah.
in that part of the process.
To relieve the burden from the property owner that's being, I guess, somebody that's experienced the property damage
Right.
from the irresponsible owner. And I do blame the owner, not the pet. Although the pet's doing the damage,
But we have to have a way to identify, is this a pet, or is this a stray, or is this somewhere else? And so the things kind of change
Yeah.
from there. And so all we're saying is, as a responsible owner, you've got to identify that animal, so that somebody does have the way to understand it is someone's pet. Because the laws then change, then your requirements of what you would need to do to make notifications do change.
Yeah, we'll have the discussion, I guess, about the city kicking in.
Yeah,
I'm not
that
sure,
would
because
be-
it seems not much different than if someone's sewer backs up into their basement and we're not paying
Interesting
for that,
discussions.
so I'm not
Correct.
sure why we would take on
more.
paying. We can I'm open to a discussion.
We can have a discussion then.
that's all we ask, is everybody come with an open mind,
I
right?
have an open mind.
Yes.
Okay, anybody else? Comments or questions? We have a...
Yes,
motion
we
support?
do.
We did, okay, thank you. So we had the motion and support, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. Moving to ordinances. First up, we will consider a resolution approving ordinance number 811 to amend the zoning map of the city of Alma as it appears in section 32-32 of the ordinances of the city of Alma. The premise is located at parcel number 2951-352-001 352-003, 352-004, and 352-766 are currently zoned as R1 single-family residential, and they are to be rezoned to R3 multifamily residential. So that was a mouthful.
Where actually is that?
This is the property on Michigan Avenue, what commonly we think of as industrial park more than anything else. And then I believe it also, does this cross the river into our airport property? No.
It's just to,
It's the adjacent.
just
This is-
around our industrial park around Redmond Drive. And as you follow along the river toward the Sisters of Mercy and Central Transport and to the Lux property, it's right all along there.
Okay. So just, we're going from single-family residential to multifamily. Is there a reason we don't go to industrial? But it's adjacent to the industrial park?
Well, the likelihood of those being used for industrial and making the jump from an R1 to an LI is a bigger jump. And R3, as we talked about it with the zoning consultant, is a good buffer between R1s and things like that. This was an easier path to transition to get to change those up. The property that the Lux is owned, it's R1. They have two houses on there. Obviously, it was done before the current zoning. That would give them more opportunities to possibly do some stuff along in that parcel there, where the Sisters of Mercy are at. The likelihood of them doing really anything there is probably not going to happen where they're located. And Central Transport, I sent letters to everybody to talk to them personally. I talked to the sisters, I talked to the Luxes, and I talked to Granger. They own that other little swirly piece. That's all the way to describe it. Along the bank next to the industrial park, where there's no room to build anything there at all. But if we needed to do something with Central Transport in the future, we could look at a B2. They do have the front half of that parcel is zone B2. Same thing with the Sisters of Mercy. It's zone B2 and half that parcel there. So after discussing it with the consultant, that made the most sense is transitioning it this way. If they need to transition again, we could look at those in the future, but that's why we went with the R3 instead of going a B2 or an LI. It just made more consistent sense with those four parcels across this. Since they are all R1, that it made sense to transition them to a R3. They're all kind of continuing along that residential. And if Central Transport or Redmond Drive area, they wanted to expand, maybe we could look at an LI or a B2 at that point. So that's why we went down that route.
Has
I don't know
someone
why
asked
those.
for this, or
I'm sorry.
has someone asked for this change, or?
Well, it was to clean some things up. When we put together the marijuana ordinance, we really wanted to keep all those facilities we could. Actually, best place for them would be the industrial zones. Where that stuff lies, I don't know why those were zoned R1. That's something we missed during our master planning rewrite here about 3 years ago now. You're never going to build single-family homes back there, and that's all you could do back there. So we really have limited ourselves from any kind of development back there. But also, when we set back the setbacks, we basically zoned out that industrial park for use of medical marijuana facilities. So that's another reason to go ahead and do that, Larry.
Okay.
Does this affect the church property, the orphan church property? Was the Presbyterian church?
No, it does not. No, it does not. That's further
south.
to the south. Yes. Yep. These are all R1. I understand why the Lux property is, but I don't understand why the others are R1. There's just no way you're going to build single-family homes back in there.
Okay, any more questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
No.
Oh, we need a motion. So moved. Getting lost here.
Support.
Motion support. Any more comments or questions? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion is carried. Number 2 is consideration of a resolution introducing ordinance number 812 to amend Chapter 60 of the ordinances of the City of Alma, specifically subsection A of Section 60-111, relative to residential and non-residential planned unit development standards, and subsections A, G, H, I, K, and N of Section 60-112 relative to general design standards. We have a motion.
So moved.
Any support? Any interests?
Support.
Okay, we have a
Just wanna
motion
talk
support.
about
Any comments or questions? Or Eric, you want to cover
Yeah,
some
this is
background here?
yep, this is something we've been working
Clean up
on,
again.
with, the possibility of redeveloping some of our open spaces in town. Specifically being the old middle school site, off of Downey and Pine Avenue. We did have a joint meeting with the school board, back in March to discuss opportunities. We had Don Wortman, our zoning consultant, come in and discuss some possibilities. What we kind of landed on that evening was to talk about amending our planned unit development ordinance. Basically, what these amendments are in your packet, provide a potential developer more density if they follow some extra characteristics, landscaping, position of driveways, garages, those sorts of things, amenity treatments to the structures. If they do these different things, that the Planning Commission has the opportunity or the availability to give them give that developer more density to help offset what's going to cost to put a development in there. So that seemed the most amenable. We did send out a letter to that general area. This is not specifically just for this parcel. This is an ordinance change for the whole community. But we sent out a letter to that general area because we had that big discussion here about a year ago, and did not receive any comments back. I did talk to Mr. Selman about it, and he was at our meeting that we had jointly with the city commission and the school board, and he thought this was a reasonable way of moving forward with trying to find a way to redevelop the former middle school. And hopefully it maybe will help us develop the city's property where the old airport was at. We have a lot of property, maybe that will help spur some things. Also up toward along Pine Avenue and Cheeseman there, we have a very wide open space up there too, that maybe this could help open some things up from using planned unit development instead of just saying, hey, it's R2. You gotta do something with R2. So we're hoping,
It gives us more options.
yes, we're
which
hoping
is-
that.
yeah.
And it's a process that has to come back before the community. It's not just something that a developer comes in and says, here you go, you sign off on it. It comes back to the planning commission, there's public hearings, there's a big review of the process. So more community involvement for sure.
Always good. Okay, any questions or comments?
And we're just introducing this.
Yes, we're just introducing this,
Okay.
yes, yep.
So let's just introduce them. Do we need to approve the introduction then?
Yes.
It says approved, so, okay.
That's what-
So we had a motion support, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? It's carried. Okay, agreements, consideration of the final change order number 2 to McGurk Sand and Gravel Incorporated for the 2017 capital improvement project from Ely and Euclid, and to approve the disbursement of the final payment in the application amount of $29,795.55.
Move approval.
Motion
Support.
and support. Any comments or questions?
Would they find some stuff that
No,
messed up their
no,
bid?
this was retainage that we were holding on to. We paid pay application number 1 last year, we held on to number 2, which was just retainage, and that's what this amount is for. And then change order 2 closes out the project. We actually came in under budget by around $14,000 because of the addition of the State Street portion to the bridge from North State Street from Ely to the bridge. So that's what change order number 2 does, is closes that out.
Okay.
When David says retained too, he did a really good job of holding the line of what he wanted to see finished on that project before we
That's
approved that.
why we have the hold up for the retainage. We didn't pay it out last spring. There was a few areas of concern with grass seed I wanted to see established, so it looks like it's reasonable at this point.
So this was their incentive to put the
To get it to grow.
And make it grow. Very good. Thank you for looking out for our interests. We certainly do appreciate that. So, any other comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. Reports. We have reports from the Alma Transportation Center for June 2019, the Police Department report for June 2019, and the Building Permit report for June 2019. We just need to receive those.
Move to receive.
Support.
We have a motion support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. Okay, appropriations. Anybody care to pay the bills?
Pay the bills.
Yeah, I'll take that as a motion.
Support the motion.
I'll take that as support then. Anybody have any comments or questions on the bills? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. They're paid. Commissioner comments? Roxanne?
Okay. First off, I want to say just generally, and I think that I've worked with most of you for a good long time. Our intentions are always to be as fair as possible, and it is upsetting when people are angry about a decision we've made, but it isn't a decision made in a vacuum, and we try to follow procedures and policies and not just randomly decide, oh, we're gonna do this here, we're gonna do that there. We all live here, we are all following the same rules and regulations, and I just wanted to say thank you to all of the staff and your hard work. I don't know how many of us have to do our job and then come to a meeting and justify why we did what we did, and so I appreciate all of you immensely. And Matt, you're doing a fabulous job, and I thank you for being a good sport with the crazy things that come out of my mouth, like used hot dogs or whatever. I appreciate that immensely. I mean, I feel like
I should have been better what I shouldn't have said, I suppose.
well, my mom calls the bread store where you can get cheap bread, she calls it the used bread store.
That's right.
She's like, it's not used, it's days, so no one has touched it. But I truly, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate all of you, and I mean well with what I'm doing. I try my best, and I'm opening to listening. But again, I'm not doing something that I don't have to follow the same rules, so none of us are. So, thank you.
Very good. Mr. Mott?
Hearts are kind of heavy. We've lost 3 very valuable citizens this past week. Kathy Francis, the dance instructor. Just a tragic death. Dave McMacken wrote stories of Alma and Republic trucks, and local historian. We're going to really miss Dave. And then Dale Greer was a photographer for the fire department for probably 20 years, and he passed away. So we need to remember these people because they were very valuable to our city. In fact, if I'm not out of line, could we just have a minute of silence?
Absolutely. So please join us in a moment of silence. Okay. Thank you very much. Larry, did you have anything
No,
additional?
that's it.
So, Roger.
I was going to mention what Larry did, and I have served on committees and known all 3 of these people very well for the times that I have been in Alma, and they will be deeply missed. They were a great benefit to, and a great legacy to the entire Gratiot County area. Dave and I appeared in many of the things that he wrote. I think it was tremendously fitting that he wrote his own obituary, and if you haven't seen it, it's a masterpiece like everything else that he wrote. So.
If you're reading this, I'm dead.
Yeah. And Roxanne, to you, one of the things that my mother always said was, God save us from people who mean well. So.
You might insert my name there. God save us from Roxanne, 'cause it's probably fitting as well.
Very good. Audra?
I'll pass.
All down there by yourself?
Yes, I know, I'm a little.
We could have moved you down.
Sheltered.
We could have moved you down. Sorry about that.
You shouldn't want to get close to somebody that God needs to save him from meanwhile.
Nick knows better than most. God needs to save you from Roxanne.
No, I have nothing to add, except I think that the people around this table, the folks that work here, the folks we lost, worked for the greater good. And we have to remember that sometimes the greater good is viewed differently by different folks, and that's why you have the political process. That's why you have debate and discussion.
Tony?
Just briefly, when the Build a Dream folks were here and were talking about what they were gonna do and how they were gonna do it, and I remember one young lady got up and she was in tears a little bit. She had a child who was I think, I don't know, on the spectrum, and was talking about how this park was going to be made with some of those kids in mind too, and they were gonna be able to play and enjoy it. Now, we have a grandson who's autistic, and we got to take him there. Boy, did he ever enjoy it. And so what a beautiful thing for her. I remember I was touched when she said it, and it's really true. It's just a great, great place. My other two grandkids came over later on. We took them there 2 or 3 days in a row. Fantastic place, and thank so much for those folks and for everybody in the community that came together to build that park. It's a really nice place.
It certainly is.
We're here.
Man.
Just a reminder that tomorrow we will be having our first community chat at Riverside Park starting at 5:30. Keep your eye on the weather a little bit. Could get a little dicey. We will cook hot dogs.
Dress appropriately.
yeah. And so we look forward to an opportunity. Again, public hearings are one thing and formal, but we look forward to an opportunity to be able to just chat with folks who live here, get your ideas about the community, and I appreciate staff buying into the opportunity to do this, and I think it'll be really good for us. So we look forward to seeing some folks tomorrow night.
Well, I commend you on taking the initiative to do that and to set that up, and I regret to say I'm not going to be able to be there. I've got other commitments so I'm going to miss this first one, but I hope and I trust that you'll have good turnout from the citizens of Alma, and get some good things will come of it. So I don't know if you're planning on being there, Eric, but somebody needs to bring the volunteer list. Make sure there's opportunities there for folks. Certainly echo Larry's thoughts on community members we've lost. It's very difficult to take, but it does remind us of, these are just 3 individuals that did serve the community. They served a larger community selflessly. They did a lot of projects and a lot of things involved in things that we just all take for granted. They just make things happen, and there's a lot of people in our community that do that on a daily basis. So, don't berate them for if something goes a little bit wrong. Just thank them for what they do, and hopefully join them. So, encourage everybody to do that. So, with that, we'll open it up to the public. Who would like to be the first? Please come to the podium, state your name and address, and share your thoughts. Who wants to be first tonight? Tim, you can volunteer.
Okay, hey, good to see everybody. I'll try and keep my comments pertinent rather than talk about the ravenous marauding herd of deer that ate my hostas, the one thing that I can grow. So we're going to talk about that. Irish Spring.
So we did send them over there.
Irish Spring. I tried cayenne pepper, and I think they just made it attractive. I think they tasted better. I like hot food, yes. New cuisine. A couple things that the city is dealing with. On the animal issue, we again hired an additional full-time officer. We had hired a full-time officer who we had to terminate because of some things, and we've had this vacancy for some while. And in that discussion, we talked about some of the issues that the city was dealing with, and one of the animal control. I'm sorry, animal control, and. George Bailey misspoke when he talked about the fee for bringing in stray animals. He said it was $20 because it had been $10. Not, it's $10. And actually, we talked about dropping that to $5, and I think there's strong support on the board to doing that. The animal control director feels there is a value to having a fee, even just a nominal fee. Thus the $5, but that's something that we can put into place when we do the budget, because that's basically when we look at the fee schedule. So there is some time for you to give input on that. I know Chuck Murphy's been here, the other commissioner that represents Alma, and he's very supportive of, doing what the county can do in that regard. The airport issue, which we've been talking about, it seems like forever. The county right now is getting a bid from ProNexus. We've agreed to pay for a more in-depth study of just airport operations and things that we could or should do, as we move forward. It's a good time to do this, and ProNexus seems to be able to do studies about just about everything. And so we have asked them for a bid, and I'm expecting probably by the next meeting we'll have that, and unless it's exorbitant, we'll probably approve that, and that'll give the authority and then the county some additional information to use in deciding, what is the best way to do things at the airport. So we're pretty excited about that, because we do have, as we've talked about a lot, just kind of an interesting way of managing, running the airport, which has really been kind of reactive over the years rather than proactive. And, it's kind of one of those things, sometimes you need to spend some money to figure out how to do things. And so this is a good opportunity to do that. We have a new medical examiner, the county contract with the new ME, which has been an ongoing issue for us. And I really give thanks to Sam Smith, who kind of led this. I've been aware of problems with the ME on and off for years, and I don't know how much, there's been issues across the board, but we've been kind of at a loss to figure out what to do with it because no other physician in Gratiot County has expressed any interest in being a medical examiner. And you have to be a physician in order to be a medical examiner. And Sam Smith, who owns some funeral homes and knows something about kind of medical examiner roles and things like that, was really instrumental in kind of helping us go out and look and talk to some people. And we're contracting with a physician out of Flint. And this is kind of the new norm for a lot of counties. It's like a lot of things. You outsource some things, and I think this will actually save us a significant amount of money, probably $30,000 a year, and hopefully create a better relationship with law enforcement because law enforcement has to use the ME in certain situations. The other issue was, what really brought it to a head is our current ME lost privileges at the hospital, which, and I don't know, it's because he's really working for us as a coroner. And so I don't know if you call it losing admitting privileges, but basically he was no longer welcome there. So we really were in kind of a spot. So Sam got us out of it. So it's a good thing, save us some money. Probably the final thing is, you've heard about our equalization issues, and we are in the process of basically appraising a whole bunch of properties because, for 4 years we were out of compliance, which, the notification thing, we didn't get notified. It was one of those weird things that, you don't know why, but for 4 years, the equalization director has been getting notices saying that we're out of compliance, but neither the county administrator nor the board chair were getting any notices. So we were kind of in the dark about this, but we have a new equalization person. He comes highly recommended, and we met with the state to address their deficiencies, and they said, you got to appraise about 1,000 properties. So we said, hey, guess what? You got 700 of them. Get to it. And then we contracted out some others. But that will be better than the alternative, which is the state essentially saying we're just going to kind of create our own, factor. And that isn't a good thing. So that's what's been going on in the county. I don't know if anybody has any questions about anything. We have a meeting coming up. Probably the other issue is parks. We've been trying to get a meeting together of kind of the managers and the administrator and me to talk about the park issue. And I think we had to reschedule that because so we're looking at next week.
Look forward to hearing from that.
Okay, thanks.
I would like to thank him publicly for bringing David McMackin's nomination to the county commission. David certainly 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago,
Yep.
was named the official Gratiot County historian, which should have happened years ago. Finally happened. The proclamation is framed on his wall.
Thanks, Lynn. It was great. I got to deliver it, and our elected officials did probably the fastest job of doing anything state officials could possibly do. And getting, the old state resolution signed by them, by our governor, by our lieutenant governor, and so I was able to give that to Dave a couple weeks ago and chat with him and his family. So thank you.
We all knew he was our historian anyway, so. Oh, yeah. Okay, who else would like to address the commission?
My name is Lori. I live at 517 Apartment B in St. Louis. I've been through so much in the last year, and I just want to thank everybody for all the prayers and stuff. Now I'm going through another stage of therapy for my arm and stuff, and I need a lot of prayer. I've got my church family, I've got my brothers and sisters that can help me. But if it wasn't for God and my friends and all of you, I wouldn't be standing here today, and I'm proud to be a cancer survivor. I know I talk about it all the time, but I'm proud to be standing here in front of all my friends and my brothers and sisters. Thank you.
Anybody else like to address the commission? Seeing no movement, we'll entertain the motion to adjourn. Motion and support, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are